Hey y'all, it's Gypsy. Tonight we're going to do the third episode of the Art of Tarot series, and today we're going to be talking about the second card of the Major Arcana, which is actually card number 1, and it is the Magician. So first of all, I will show you guys the Rider-Waite version, and I'm going to discuss what Rachel Pollack says in her book, 78 Degrees of Wisdom. In her book, Pollack asserts that the Magician is basically an evolution of the Fool. Like, the Fool figures out that that staff he's been walking around with, in case he needed to knock an apple out of a tree, is actually a wand. It actually has quite a bit of power. So in the Magician, we see, according to her, and I know more than one person has asserted this, we see the development of the Fool going from clueless wanderer to master of his own destiny, so to speak. The Magician is a card that has to do with manifesting, things from your thought into reality. It has to do with using your resources, managing your resources. It also represents basically power, taking action, and so without further ado, here we see the Magician, and according to, if we're looking at it from Rachel Pollack's perspective, this is where we see the Fool. He's all grown up. He's not just a silly boy walking around with this camping stick. He's actually become a man, and he's taken control over his environment. You also see that he has his wand that he has discovered is now raised above his head, sort of as like a lightning rod. He's summoning the energy from the universe, and he's bringing it and connecting it to the ground. You can see that he's pointing at the ground here. The flowers surrounding him represent the creative energy and the manifestation of his intent in the physical world. We also see that he has the infinity sign over the top of his head, and then he has all of the suits represented here as his resources. You see the wand, the pentacle, the chalice, or cup, excuse me, and then the sword. So these are, some of the basic things that we recognized in this, in this version were the fact that he is a male. The Magician is a male figure, typically. There's an infinity sign involved in the picture, namely over the Magician's head. There is a connection from the heavens above down to the ground. You have one arm raised with the wand, and then you have another one pointing at the ground. So it's kind of like he's conducting that flow of energy, manifesting things from outside and bringing them inside, and creating things with them. He uses resources in order to do that. On my scorecard for this one, I actually broke out resources, and he got bonus points if he actually had these suits represented in the cards. We noticed when we were going through them that some of them don't have the exact things, and actually Goo pointed out some of them that I thought didn't actually did. So, yeah. Rachel basically says that you should also look at the Magician in the context of like a shaman or a medicine man, in that the magic and the manifesting that he does, it's not all about him. He actually does it to serve a greater purpose. And we see that in a couple of our cards. Okay, we'll get to that. I'm going to go through all of these gradually. So first of all, let me start with my older decks. We'll look at those first and see how they kind of rated, because I always like to start with these old ones first. These came before the Rider-Waite deck, but it's still interesting to me to see how much his art, I guess, was influenced by this older stuff. Now, if you remember the Minchiati Fool, we saw a guy that was really overwhelmed. He was kind of looking like he was about to beat down a couple of kids, because he was, angry and out of control. You see here the number 1 at the top, showing us that that is the Magician card. And then you also see these, I think it looks like those two kids again, only now they're dressed, they're tamed, they're behaving, they're not climbing all over him. He's lost the stick, and now he's got, it looks like, some canisters of, maybe treats or, curiosities of some sort. He's still got his feather in his head, in his hat. So that tells me that this is still the same guy. He's just changed a little bit. He's mellowed out. He knows what's going on, and he's taking control of his environment. So I still see that progression of the Fool. I love this. I actually really like this representation. I think this is, taking into account what Rachel says about the Magician being, the grown-up Fool. I really like that card. Then we have the Magician from the Minchiati deck. And here we see the table with the elements. Now, at first, I didn't think it represented it, but it did. Goo, do you want to talk about what they are?
Yeah, when she first said it, she said, oh, they're not really like the suits, like the other kinds, but really it is because a pin of coins, little coins that he has on the desk here, actually do represent the pentacle. And she was like, no, they don't have he doesn't get the extra points. She was like, yeah, he does, because he has a wand, he has a knife, he has a chalice, like cup or something, and he has the little pentacles. She was like, oh, yeah, he does. So, yeah.
So give her a cookie, everybody. She got one right. Just kidding. That was a pretty good observation.
Yeah,
and then the Visconti Tarot, she did it again, because in this one again, at a glance, I guess I look at these too fast. I'm like, nah, that's not the same stuff. It doesn't count. It totally counts. Okay.
The wand, knife, cup, and coins.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Now, we're not clear on what this little wedding cake thing is over here, but there's your cup. There's your coins. There's your knife. And then he's got his wand here. And I notice in a lot of them, the staff is, leaning on the ground and coming upwards. And, I guess you could count that as being kind of that connection between the earth and the heavens. But we really don't see that much in this one. He is looking down here. So he has his wand raised high, and he's looking down here. So you kind of do have that, the effect of the above and below in some ways. This one, not so much. It doesn't really... Sorry, I know I'm going backwards, but I forgot to mention that. There is somewhat an indication of above and below here, but I don't feel like it's as strong. I don't think I gave him a point for it. Okay, so the Marseille deck actually had 6 points out of, I believe, how many did I have?
7.
I had 8 total points that you could get for being, extra magician-y.
None of them really got it all.
No, none of them got all 8 points. There were regular 7 points, and then you got a bonus point if you had the resources. Now, not all of the elements that I found were actually in the Rider-Waite deck, but just in looking at a lot of my cards, I noticed that a lot of them have a sphere, a representation of a sphere, which can also be seen, I guess, as an infinity symbol. I see it as just as a representation of the whole of the universe of spirit. And then there's also a moon in a lot of the cards. And so I created those 2 scores, even though they're not necessarily Rider-Waite. They definitely did, were close. I'm sorry, they were definitely very common factors in a lot of the cards. So the winner, as far as the highest scoring, closest to the whole Rider-Waite thing, is the Tarot of the Magical Forest. Now this one was very similar in the Fool, and I think we're going to see this throughout this deck, because this is a very weighty deck. They basically just took the Rider-Waite's cards and turned them into fluffy animals. So here's Ruse, Tarot of the Magical Forest, and of course that's her favorite. She liked this magician a lot, and it's very normal. You see the infinity sign above the head, you see the wand raised, and his tiny little hand pointing at the ground. And then we see his little floating magical carpet table that has his pentacle, his sword, his chalice, and of course his wand is in his hand. And then at the bottom you have the flowers surrounding, showing the physical manifestation of his efforts. Bam, bam, blibbity, blam, blam, blam. So, he has his resources. His power is infinite. And his might is all around him. Something like that. Alright, next we have, what was the other one that was very similar? Tarot of Dreams. This magician is, now this magician's different in that he doesn't look like an advancement of the Fool, because he's very old, and so if this is a progression of the Fool, he skipped way ahead. It took him a long time to figure it out. This is like the Van Wilder version of the magician. It took him a while to get it. So here we see, kind of a Dumbledore-looking guy sitting in his throne.
The infinity sign's like right.
Yeah, this one, we didn't see the infinity sign right away, because it's buried here.
I thought it was in the wand, but I guess it was not.
Yeah, Goo was looking at the top of his wand up there, like, see, that looks kind of like an infinity. I was like, I don't know. And then we were, like, glanced at it again. I was like, wait a minute, there it is. It's right in front of our faces, and it's white. But anyway, here we see all of his elements, his resources, the chalice, the sword, the pentacle, and the wand. And then he also has that staff, kind of like in the Marseille deck. This leaning staff is kind of I see that as representing that tie between the heaven and the earth, because 9 times out of 10 it's touching the earth. And in fact, this one's kind of jammed into the pentacle here. It's right next to it. But I see that as kind of representing that grounding. Oh, it's stuck on his platform. He's on a little platform. That grounding device, that lightning rod, so to speak. And then, of course, here we see the sphere. And this is what I meant by, it's symbolic in all of them. And I think that's kind of an orb, represents power, represents, the universal gift that we all possess, which is, which helps us to manage our resources. In fact, you see the light coming down. It's in capturing all of this stuff. This is the power that he has to control this stuff. Other ones that were pretty weighty, that were pretty similar to the way that we see in the Arthur Waite deck, is the Illuminati Tarot. And again, we're going to see this a lot because this is very closely tied. However, with this particular one, they strayed quite a bit. If you remember the Fool, the Illuminati Fool was very much like the Rider-Waite Fool. The Illuminati Magician is actually not even called a magician, it's called the Alchemist, which I really like that title better than magician, just because it has to do with transforming. It's not, which I know that's basically what magic is, but I like the word alchemy. I like the way that encompasses so many different things. It just seems like a broader term. When I think magician, I think magic. Alchemy applies to all kinds of transformation, intentional and accidental. It's it's the progression of things, sometimes naturally, sometimes with a little bit of a catalyst to help things along. But I love the term alchemist. And this was one of your favorites, wasn't it?
Yeah, one of my favorites. I ended up liking that one.
Oh yeah, okay, we'll get to those. We'll tell you our favorites in just a second. So this is the Illuminati Tarot, and you see again we've got the infinity sign above his head. And then we have the elements here, the sword, the pentacle, the cup. And was this his wand? Did we decide this was the wand? Okay, so this is his wand, similar to the Merced deck. So we're seeing that slanted wand again with the fancy top. We just saw it in our Tarot of Dreams. We've got that wand going sideways from bottom to top, bottom to top. And then, of course, there's the infinity sign. So there's the Illuminati Tarot. Steampunk Tarot, again, very similar. I like this one. You've got the wand down here on the ground, the 4 elements, and the infinity sign. This is a pretty basic representation. His pentacle, you can see, is right there on his little, holding his cape on. And then we have the Magician from the Gilded Tarot. And that one's cool. There's not that same, it's got the moon in the background. We'll see the moon in several other cards that are coming up. We haven't really seen them in any of the ones we've shown yet. But the moon was one that we identified also along with the sphere. They weren't necessarily in the Rider-Waite one, but they were in a lot of other ones. So there's the Gilded Tarot. Okay, so what do you see in this one?
Okay, well, I see, you probably can't see it in the card, but the little coin that he's holding in his hand has a little pentacle on it. You can see it there. Yeah. And he also has a moon in it. There's a moon in it. And he has his staff thing and his cup and his sword. And it also has the heaven to earth connection because he has his thing. He has his wand up in the air, and he has his finger pointing down. I mean, even though it's in the Y, he's still
Into
pointing
the
down.
chalice, right.
Yeah, but
grounding.
That's all the signs in it. I don't know why there's people in the background. My mom said it was probably just because he's helping more than just himself.
It goes back to earlier when I was mentioning that Rachel Pollack said something about, kind of looking at the magician also in the context of being a shaman or a witch doctor of some sort. And I think here, to me, it seems like the people standing around, that is, that shows the other people that he has a following of people that he helps on a regular basis, perhaps. Let's see, the Legacy of the Divine Tarot. This one's a really good one. Do you want to talk about this one? Do you see the 4 elements? He has his... This is an example of him not having the actual suits, okay? We see down here he's got his potion bottles, and they actually have like alchemist symbols on them, if you can see that. And so it's not necessarily the 4 suits that are, his resources here. He has his own resources, but the fact is he does have them. And what about the heaven and earth thing?
I don't think he had heaven. Well, I don't think he had heaven.
You don't think he does?
'Cause he's not
I
really...
do. Here, we see this lightning, this energy. It's starting here, it's grounded here, and it's coming up, and it's coming into the sphere. He's got one hand below, one hand below. One hand above, and he has one hand below. And he's manifesting this energy here that's tying from bottom up to top. And then, of course, we see other orbs as well. Not only this one, but we have another one, another big sphere down here. And let's see, the 1977 Alchemy, England. This one's a very Gandalf the White looking card, in my opinion.
And I pointed out something that you didn't see in it.
Which was, oh, the stuff. You know, I was looking at this as though, yeah, he's got resources, but they're not the resources. Actually, they are. Let me get out my handy-dandy pointing tool. If you can look really closely, this right here is like a horn that is made into a chalice. It's got a silver chalice top on it. There's your cup. This little bag here is a money bag. Coins, pentacles. Where's the knife? There's a sword. There it is. Sword in here. The sword right here. That stands for swords. And then here we have that crooked staff again. And that diagonal function. Ground to sky. And then we have the extension here with his little bright shiny orb. Yeah.
Not a bad card, actually.
I did not realize that he was actually packing all that heat. I thought he just had his resources strapped on him. And again, I didn't look slowly enough. And she found it with her little peeper. She was like, wait a minute. Anyway, so we discovered that that one is actually pretty weighty as well.
That one was pretty good, actually. Not to mention the other cards have been kind of like... some of them have been kind of like... Really?
Well, we haven't gotten to some of the reallys. There's some reallys. We have some reallys in here. We haven't done those yet.
Yeah.
Shadowscapes Tarot. Beautiful representation as always. I really see the progression of the Fool here because he's still on his ledge. He's still on his ledge.
And he's younger.
But he's secure in his little spot. You know, I mean, he's balancing. And again, with the heaven to earth thing, I think it's less obvious here. But we have this rock, this solid earth right here. But then his wings tell me that, you know, he's not grounded here. He can ascend. He can move up. He also has all of his little stuff hanging off of his wings.
And he actually does have all the...
Yes. And this was one where I got to tell Goo, because she didn't think he had the right ones, but he does. It's not a sword and a pentacle
And a
chalice and a wand, but if you know, in tarot, those suits are related to the 4 elements, the 4, basic elements of life, which is earth, air, fire, and water. So we have the fire. We have these little trinkets hanging off. We have a lantern here that has the fire for the wands. And then here we see a seashell that represents water, a feather for air, and then some ivy, which represents earth. So he has representations of all the 4 elements. And this one, this one really kind of shows that shamanic quality that Rachel mentions in her book in relation to the magician. So I really love this card.
Oh, and it also have an infinity sign over his head.
It really...
You barely see it.
Yeah, it's pretty subtle, but it's there. That infinity sign is definitely over his head. So, and then of course we've got this orb. Again, this represents that encompassing of that power. It's like an actual manifestation where we see that power being held on to, almost, literally. Okay, so that's the Shadowscapes. And then these are our favorite. We're going to go ahead and show you our favorite because they're kind of in this group already. We have similar tastes. Now, last week when I did the Fool, my favorite was the Joie de Vivre Fool. This week, my favorite is Paulina's other deck, the Magician. Now, this one is obviously, and I showed this earlier, this is... I don't want to say that because I don't think I'm going to show that earlier. This is one of the only cards that is not obviously a male. This is obviously, very obviously a female. This card is like a hidden picture puzzle, y'all. She has got, I mean, Paulina Cassidy does this anyway, but she's got so many pictures in here. Okay, look, first of all, if you look down here in this corner, right here, they're holding all of her things. I know this is really hard because my camera is really crappy. There's a cup, there's a sword, there's that wand again, and then there is the pentacle. And if you look here, she's actually pointing at the resources. These little fairies are holding all her stuff. She is actually pointing at them. These are the earthly elements. The earthly elements that help, you know, to manifest reality. And then we see here she's got her wand raised and the sphere up high, you know, and then of course she is.
Did you see that little tiny infinity sign? It took me forever to find.
Oh yeah, the infinity sign. Let me see if I can get.
See above the owl, that thing above the owl's head? That's an infinity sign, guys.
Can you see that? I don't know.
Right there.
Right there.
Yeah.
Right there! It's almost impossible to see. But there is so much going on in this picture, I could talk about it for a long, long time. Obviously, she's got the flower power down. It is down. She has got it, bought the t-shirt, moving along. So Goo's favorite was this. You want to talk about your own card since you're being so quiet?
Okay, so I like this card a lot because it had, like, it looked kind of like Alice in Wonderland-y. It looked kind of like a Cheshire Cat and like a Mad Hatter kind of thing going on. And I liked, because of the colors, it was like orangey and then it got pink on the bottom. I like that. And I like that the infinity, he has like two infinity signs. He has like one right here on one on his tail, right there. And he has one in that little rabbit tail.
Here we see the regular infinity sign, the rabbit, and then here we see the snake swallowing itself. We see that in a lot of Paulina Cassidy's artwork as a representation of maturity and like, I guess, advancement. Like we see that on seen that in other decks with like the kings. It's a sign of completeness. Okay, and then you see
it has all the suits. Has the sword. He has the sword in his hand.
Sword.
He has the pentacle. He has the cup or chalice and the sword.
And the wand.
The wand, not the sword.
Wand. And then we see the grounding. We see him grounded here. He's actually a genie out of a lamp. He comes up and then it floats out the top and on up into the goodness of everything. So you have that progression of from below and to above.
You know, I don't know about you, but don't you see it? There's kind of like a moon behind him.
There is definitely some sort of an illumination of some sort behind him. It could be seen as a moon or a sun, but yes.
And like the little flowers and stuff are like circling around it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, they kind of, you're right, kind of like moths to a light.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful. So that's her favorite. Oh, the Wildwood Tarot. Now this is a pretty cool, I really like this one. This is very shamanic. This one, you know, it's kind of like the Shadowscapes in that you see more of a medicine man, not so much the fancy magician with the fancy clothes on. This guy's got his staff, and down here on the rock, he's got all of his resources. Now, the Wildwood Tarot, and this is actually called the Shaman. The Wildwood Tarot does not have normal suits like the regular tarot. I went and looked, and these don't exactly represent the suits of the Wildwood Tarot either, but they are obviously his tools, the tools of his trade. They are what he needs in order to manifest what he wants, which is obviously one of his manifestations was that fine new coat he's wearing. Lovely. So I like the Wildwood Tarot. I like this representation of the magician. Bella Luna's favorite, she and Rue are watching movies, so they decided not to come do this, but their favorite was, her favorite, was the Steampunk Wisdom of the Gods of the Machine. She liked this one because it was all technical, and it's actually called the Technomancer. Technomancer. I don't know how you want to pronounce that word. I don't personally care. What do you think we should call it? Technomancer. There you have it. So, again, in the Fool card for this deck, we saw a man looking into a tunnel, looking into a machine. here we see that he has become part of the machine. He's got his hat on. Looks to me like it's the same guy, but he has moved up, moving on up, and so now he is actually inside and the master of the machine. We have the infinity sign up here. We have a sphere here where his brain, if you see, this is like actually a brain in a bubble. And then we have the above and below. The lightning is starting here or finishing here, whatever. It's traveling this path. So it's coming from down here and going up here. I hate going backwards. Another thing that we noticed about this was the physical manifestation. If you look down here at the bottom, we got this doctor standing there. It's a chimp. And I think, to me, that just goes to show that anything is possible. You have to put your mind to it, use your resources. In this case, he's got piles and piles of books, all of this stuff around him. It says Deus Ex Machina, which means God of the Machine, and I think it's Latin. But, I just thought that was really interesting. To me, that represented the manifestation of the magician, what he can create. He got himself a monkey doctor. That's pretty impressive. I wouldn't want a chimp working on me personally, but, to each his own. The Hobbit Tarot. This one's not too far off. We don't really see, obviously, all of the resources as we do in the others. He does have a bubble. He has his wand. This right here, this wand is extremely traditional, obviously. We've seen enough decks now that this is a standard. We have the ground to the sky. We've got the moon in the background, which again was not in the Rider-Waite card, but we've seen the moon in a lot of these cards. And we have this little sky down here, I think is what you call that. I'm not really sure exactly what the significance of that is. I don't know that it's necessarily a sword.
It looks kind of like a sword shaped like a moon.
Yeah, it's a crescent-shaped blade, but I'm not really sure what its actual significance is. But you see Gandalf sitting there. Gandalf. Again, it's not my favorite representation, but it is a pretty picture. I mean, it's a peaceful card. It's okay.
Hey, Mom, he is having a reference. It looks kind of like he is having a reference because he's pointing down and his finger's up.
Oh, look at that! She is so good at this. You see he has one finger pointing up. Can y'all see that? It doesn't focus very well. Well, he does. He has one finger pointing up, and he has the other finger pointing down. So we do have that representation there. And then we have the Tarot of Vampires. So here we see
It looks angry.
the Tarot of Vampires, and of course he's all scary. So scary! You want to talk about this one, or you want me to? You go ahead. All right. You see the Earth to the sky thing. You see how he's pouring, almost like a temperance type thing. He's pouring blood into his his blood bowl here, and then we see him with his wand holding it up here, connecting the Earth to the sky.
And he actually does have the suits in that one, even though it may not look like it right now, but he does.
Okay, we've got a cup. Is that the sword right there?
Yeah, that's a little, dagger knife thing.
Dagger, okay. And then we have the wands here.
And the pentacle's on the skull's head.
The pentacle, you have to look for it. It's on the skull's head. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's our pentacle.
Mm-mm.
So, and you can also argue that he has his fire, his water, his earth, and his air, as you see the wind flowing and his cape blowing. He also has fire here.
It's not water, it's blood.
Well, it's close. They're both liquids, right? Gotta
Oh,
have
and he
water
has
to
a
make
moon.
blood.
He has a moon in that one. It's a red moon.
Yeah, he has a red moon in the background.
Evil moon.
Evil. Okay, these are the ones that are kind of like... I'm not going to say I don't like this one. This is the Archeon Tarot, because, let's face it, folks, it's cute. We're going to let him slide and not say he's the worst one, because
he's really not.
He's cute boy. He's cute boy.
He has at least some kind of representation. There's a card over here we're about to show you, and I don't even know how I don't know how they even I don't know.
Now these two, we don't get them, but I'm not saying that they're bad. I'm going to go with this one first because you know it's coming. It's the Inner Realms Tarot. That one looks like the Oogie Boogie Man from The Nightmare Before Christmas on fire. Yeah. Somebody lit him up. You know, that little bag he's in looks pretty flammable, so don't play with fire, Boogeyman. This is what happens. Just say no. No, it is a cool card. You know, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say it sucks. Not my favorite representation of the Magician, obviously, because there's just not
anything.
You know, yeah, I
mean, he's in water. He's fire.
You can get. I mean, you can definitely get the message out of this. So it's not like it's a horrible card. It's just it doesn't have enough of what I'm used to. It's different than what I'm used to. This one, all I can say about this one is creepy dude at the Renaissance Festival. Okay, this is the Tarot of the Hidden Realm. I have to tell you guys, honestly, it's the mustache. It is the mustache. I don't dig it.
There's no representation of. There's like no signs of anything. There's like no cup. There's no chalice. There's nothing. It's just.
But he has a tattoo on his very slightly hairy chest.
But what does that even tattoo mean? It means nothing. It's just a swirly tattoo.
I don't know. I don't know, and I gotta tell you, I've looked at a lot of the cards in this deck, and I like a lot of the cards. This one, I do not. In fact, I believe this is my least favorite card in the entire deck, and it is because it looks like creepy dude from the Renaissance Festival. You know, there's always that creepy guy walking around. There he is. He made it on a card. He made it on a magician card. A magician card that I just don't get. Alright folks, so that's all we have for tonight. Thanks a lot for joining us, and I will see you next weekend when we talk about the High Priestess. Bye-bye! Your face! Ah, I said it wrong again. Okay, ready? I like to look at this card. It makes me happy. Happy. Okay. Okay.